feel like this might be a team that, as they win more games, they get better. They get more confident in everything that they're doing, and this is a perfect time, if there's any semblance of truth to that idea. This is the perfect time for their confidence to be so high heading into this tough six-game road trip.
Yeah, I mean, you needed this 3-game win streak because I mean the road is just going to be it's violent. The schedule just comes at you and just slaps you around. And so if I'm really looking at this, I thought that they would be lucky to split the weekend. This is not a team that's played well on the second night of a back-to-back at all season long. And I'll point to something Mike Brown said too in postgame. He said like this was one of his favorite wins because it was an ugly game. It was ugly and it got mucked up, and he's like, okay, like we can win. We can win this game. And, they followed through. They held to their principles and they found a way against, a couple of guys who got crazy hot. And, I just thought that they took everyone else out of their game, like outside of DeRozan and Zach Levine, like there were a lot of like no shows by the Bulls. And I thought that was on the Kings. Like the Kings really did like turn the screws on that team. And when they needed to get stops against those guys, they went and got stops against them late and really kind of slowed things down with guys like KZ Akbala and Davion Mitchell. So like you got to win like 82 game schedule. You're going to have a handful of blowouts each way. You're going to have a handful of or maybe 20 games that are decided by 3 or 4 points. Then you're going to have maybe 10 games that are just flat out ugly, and you hope that you survive. And so the Kings are finding out different ways to win each and every type of these games, and they're finding ways to stay in the other games. There's only I really think this season we can point to one game where they got stomped, and I think they had a lead in the third quarter against Boston.
Mhm.
And so that's the one game where they really played poorly for a huge stretch. And so like that's good. The fact that this team competes so well that they come out and they show you something every single night, and it doesn't matter if the shots are falling or not, they're going to be in it and they're going to find ways to fight with you. I think it's really interesting to watch, especially like again, like look at Sabonis. You talked about he had 4 shots, and we talk about Herter going 1 of 11. Like 40% of your starting lineup had a bad game, and you won, and you won pretty convincingly. So, like that's a big deal. This team is not showing that they're just one trick pony. That they can do multiple things. That they can beat you in multiple ways, and that they can get stops when they need it and start to show that they're improving on defense. So, yeah, I mean, there's a possibility that this defense, you know, goes back up into the mid 20s. There's also a possibility that this defense keeps getting better, and we just keep giving them more time in the pot to simmer, and they'll keep learning and getting better. And then I fully expect Monty McNair to still be surfing and waiting for that one moment to pounce and go get that extra piece that they might need to get them over the hump.
Did this weekend with that Clippers game and that Bulls game, and especially the Clippers, the way they had to put the roster out with no Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. The thing that really impressed me and I was happy to see from this Kings team is they did what they were supposed to do. Like beat the hell out of him. Don't even it's the NBA and these guys. Nah, man. Like you guys, we're good. You guys, as currently put together, are not good enough to play in the same game as us. We're gonna smack you from the start. And even with the Bulls, the reason why I asked you the question about whether you thought they were gonna lose or not is because they're the Bulls. They're better than the Bulls, and they play like yesterday. They handle business, and that's just a really good sign for this team moving forward. You hear Malik Monk after the game talk about we're legit, we're legit. They're doing everything right now that a legit team does, not just winning games, but if you're going up against teams that you should handle, they're handling them. And aside from maybe I guess Detroit, they're handling them relatively easily.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, look, there are going to be times where this team gets smacked around. It's going to happen. I mean, it's a long season, and we just saw a 3-game losing streak, and the fact that this team has the like intestinal fortitude to survive a 3-game losing streak and bounce right back. That to me is showing the resiliency that this team has lacked for 15, 16 years. That's what it is. They have resiliency. They have a common goal, and they push forward together. So I really do believe that, like, the one good thing about this team is that they just have this fire, this competitive fire to get better together, and to pull this thing together. To they have a common goal, which is to snap the playoff streak, the playoff drought, and it's. I know a lot of teams here in Sacramento have had that, but this just feels different for the first time. And like, I hope they can hold it together all season long. It makes things more interesting for all of us to cover and to talk about. But at the same time, like, this is step one of what should be like a multi-level process of like getting better in one season. We've already seen them show that they can compete. We've seen them learn how to win close games. We've seen them fight through adversity when the tough times hit. We've seen them come through and all of a sudden show up. That we've seen them do things that we haven't seen in years, which is beat a team like the Clippers, who are missing their two stars. Like, these are things that are signs of growth for me as someone who's covered this team forever, that we just haven't got to see forever in a long, long time. So it is good to see sort of the building process that we're seeing.
Is there anything that you've seen at all that makes you believe this isn't sustainable? The way that they're winning these games, the way that they're competing in the games, like we just talked about KZ Okpala and Davion Mitchell and the growth that we've seen, within just the defensive side of the ball during the year. All of that feels sustainable to me.
No, I think so too. Like, I think it feels sustainable, and the other thing I'll keep saying, it feels like they're just hitting like the tip of the iceberg on where they can be. So, like, again, like talking to Jay Triano, like the offense is just like in stage one, right? They're working through the basics of this offense, and then after they get through the basics, there are all of these other elements of counters off of the moves that they have right now, which they haven't even got to. Think back to the 2002 Sacramento Kings and that offense that Rick Adelman had, and you get 4 years into an offense like this, and you got a core group of players who have been together, and all of a sudden you can't stop them because you don't know what the counter is to the counter, and that's where we're heading towards. And then on the defensive end, I felt like this team was going to be better the entire time, and they're starting to show up and be better. But again, it doesn't happen without 100% buy-in from some of these young players. If we don't have 100% buy-in from Chimezi Metu and Davion and KZ, and even like Trey Lyles when he steps on the floor, and Terrence Davis when he steps on the floor, if you don't have 100% buy-in from each one of those guys, then this thing could spin out really quickly. And so far, that's what's happening. They're giving you what you need each and every night. And some nights they're going to play 8 minutes, some nights they're going to play 28. And they've just got to be ready for whatever's there. And that's what, again, the sustainability piece is, the buy-in. As long as they're bought in and they're fighting for Mike Brown and for their teammates, then I think we're going to see this team sitting, where they're at, maybe a little bit higher. Maybe they can get 10 games over 500. That would be shocking. All of a sudden, if they're actually pushing for like a high 40s or a 50 mark win season. But we're such a long ways from that, and you got to like ride out the ebbs and flows of the season.
Can we talk about my main man, Malik Monk, and what he has been able to do? I mean, just balling out of his mind. And it seems like we obviously have talked about him a little bit before when we get together, but he continues to not only play at a high level, but it seems like every week he's getting a little bit better, and he's showing a little bit more that he has in his bag. And Damian talked about it earlier. And aside from just his play on the court, in the locker room, you get the feel that he's the leader. Like, not necessarily, being the best player, but he's a guy that everybody, when he speaks, people listen or they follow. Do you get that sense from being around this team?
Yeah, what I get the sense is he's the icebreaker. He's the guy, he's the glue guy. So I don't want to say he's the leader. I want to say he's the guy who is tying everyone together. He's the one that makes everyone laugh. He's the one that brings just an incredible spirit when, you've had a rough couple of days, when your body's not feeling good and you still got to show up. You walk in the door and there's Malik ready to smile and laugh and get you going. and that's such a breath of fresh air. And I don't know that the Kings knew that this is who they were getting. And like if the Lakers knew that this is who they were getting, they wouldn't have like let him go at all. They would have like done everything in their power to keep him. But I think when you have big personalities like a LeBron James, and like some of the other guys, like Russell Westbrook, guys like Malik Monk, they can just kind of be like, okay, he's the class clown. He makes us laugh, but it doesn't have that impact. When he gets onto a team that maybe doesn't have that huge personality, then his personality is sort of able to expand and people start to glob onto what he's doing. And like on the court, he's just been phenomenal. He made that pass to De'Aaron Fox, and that was coming down to our end of the court. I was watching, and Keegan Murray was cutting baseline. I thought he was going to Keegan Murray. And when he wrapped that pass around to De'Aaron Fox on the opposite end of the court, he did a skip pass basically across the court. It was so incredibly phenomenal. And you were just sitting there like, I can't believe he just saw that. And then he started getting a little loose because he got some confidence in him. He started doing crazy things. But it's so much fun. I mean, that dunk he had was by far the dunk of the year. And then he did the stare down, which is whoever he dunked on, he does the stare down to everybody.
Kobe White.
Oh, okay. So it's Kobe White. So that's what he was doing. He said, yeah, that's what he does. So I gave him a little of that back. But just like the little things that he's doing, and it's usually in the moment. Like, does he take some ill-advised threes on occasion? Yeah. But you can live with one guy being that guy because what he's doing is he's uplifting everybody. And I think that for guys like Davion, it's taken so long for him to figure out how to play with Monk because he's just not used to not having the ball in his hands at all. And Monk has the ball all the time. He's taken that much time to figure it out, but all of a sudden we're seeing Davion figure out how to play with him and start to thrive. We're seeing Chimezi Metu with these incredible alley-oops from Monk. Every single game we're getting one now, so the chemistry's building there. We're seeing the chemistry building with Sabonis and Monk where they get in a two-man game and start destroying teams, and there's nothing you can do about it. So, yeah, he's really been he might be the most important player for the Kings. I think it's still Sabonis, but just the personality and the way he's coming in, especially for a team that historically is bad in the first quarter and bad. They lack energy in the first quarter. They lack energy in the third quarter. He steps on the court, and if you're not ready, he's just going to run you over. He's gonna run right past you and dunk, and he's having a good time. And I think he's being a player that drags everyone with him in some of those